Welcome, everyone. My guest is Güven Güzeldere today. He's a philosopher of mind and cognitive science. He holds master degrees in computer science and philosophy at Indiana University and Ph.D. in Symbolic Systems and Philosophy at Stanford University. Having worked at the Intelligent Systems Laboratory at Xerox PARC, he taught in philosophy, psychology, and cognitive neuroscience departments and programs, first at Duke, then at Harvard Universities. He also taught as a visiting faculty member at Boğaziçi and Vienna Universities. Currently, he's working on 2 book projects on the problem of consciousness in humans and animals and on the history of artificial intelligence. Güven Guzeldere has also been the producer of a popular science and philosophy talk show called Açık Bilinç at Açık Radyo, broadcasting from Istanbul since 2012. And today we're going to discuss artificial intelligence and how can we combine free will and try to do it best of us in our life. Welcome, dear Güven.
Thank you.
Dear Professor.
Hello.
Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Very well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Great. I'm doing great. Thanks. So, shall we start and jump into the first question?
Sure.
How can we say a machine is intelligent?
The million-dollar question of artificial intelligence since the beginning. As most people do, I'll go back in history to give an answer. In 1950, Alan Turing, the British mathematician who also laid the foundations of computer science, wrote a paper called Computing Machinery and Intelligence and published it in a philosophy journal called Mind. And there he asked that question, how can we know if a machine is intelligent? At the time, that was a very revolutionary question because computers were, not sophisticated at all at the time, and it was kind of a dream to even imagine a computer becoming intelligent. But Turing's answer was as follows. He said, if we try to get into debates about whether computers are intelligent, we'll need to have a semantic agreement on what a machine is and what intelligence means and so forth. And that can be an unending series of debates. So he said, I'm going to leave aside all those. Instead, I will propose a test. And any machine that passes this test will have to be considered intelligent. And Turing's idea was that anybody in the right mind would consider such a machine intelligent. And the test came to be known as the Turing test since then. And it is, a highly regarded test today, too, in artificial intelligence systems, although I think it's possible to criticize that test in many ways. So the test says, you as a human judge sit in front of 2 screens and you are having a conversation with something or somebody, and unbeknownst to you, one of the computers is being, the text that comes to you is being generated by a human being. The text that comes from the other computer is generated by an artificial intelligence system. This fact you know, but you don't know which one is which. And you have unlimited time. You can ask any questions you want and take as much time as you like and so forth. In the end, could you tell apart a human being from a machine? Turing's idea was that if you can't, then you would have to accept that machine as an intelligent machine because the machine was able to fool you in the end. In making you think that you're talking with a real person. Now, it's possible to criticize this test as being both too weak of a test and too strong of a test. It's too weak in the sense that things that are not intelligent might be able to pass the Turing test, and perhaps the current situation in the new wave AI is sort of like that. I'll come to that in a second. And it's also too strong in the sense that if you make passing this test as a criterion for intelligence, then what about all the things that do not have language and therefore cannot participate in the test? They're all, all animals besides humans are without the kind of human language that we do, so they can't pass the test. Does that mean that they are all non-intelligent? So it's possible to criticize the test in both ways, but I think, and over the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so, there have been a Turing test that used to take place in the Boston area. I'm not sure if it still is going on, but an entrepreneur put up $100,000, I think, for any machine that can pass the Turing test, and he finds various academics who are interested and knowledgeable about this idea to serve as judges on the panel, and if the machine, fools all the judges, then the programmer who wrote the code will get $100,000 and a medal, for passing the Turing test and so forth. Now, it seems to me that, I don't know this for a fact, but new AI systems like ChatGPT, the large language models, might be able to test the Turing test. Perhaps they already have. Does that show that these new systems are intelligent? I'm not that sure. In order to answer that question properly, I think one needs to look at the computational architecture of the ChatGPT-like systems to see what they are able to do, what they are not able to do, and why they are not able to do what they are not able to do. So the kind of large language models that are based on the neural net architectures were first proposed all the way back in 1986, and some people have been working on fine-tuning them for almost 40 years. However, most of us, even those of us who work in AI in other areas, we're not really aware of this fact. And until about 10 years ago, I think very, very few people could have guessed that in 10 years, artificial intelligence could have made the leaps that it has made over the last couple of years. So this leap has to do with the mastery that these models seem to exhibit in answering questions, holding a conversation, using language as a tool in a way that surpasses older systems. So like ELIZA was a system that was built by Joseph Weizenbaum at MIT back in the 60s, and it was supposed to act like a Rogerian psychotherapist. All it did basically was to be able to form questions that made sense to the person who is being interviewed or who came to see the psychotherapist by taking what they say and turning them around into question form. So that's what Rogerian psychotherapy is based on. It's, other-centric kind of psychotherapy. So, you say, oh, I have a problem with my boyfriend, and then the machine says, so what kind of a problem do you have with your boyfriend, or something like that. But the machine really never had any true insights of any kind, or it couldn't impart any real advice. Now, the current models, AI models like ChatGPT, can hold a conversation for much longer in a more reasonable way, such that it can even probably pass the Turing test. Does that, however, show that they're intelligent and they know what they're doing, they understand what they're asking? When one looks at the computational architecture, I don't get the sense that they do at all. It's rather based on an examination of statistical relations between words that are derived from a huge number of texts. So some people criticize these models by calling them stochastic parrots, in quotation marks, because they're parroting based on stochastic relations between words. And perhaps that's true, but nonetheless, it is very impressive. And there are, I think, a zillion different ways that new AI systems will be used, ways that, I am unable to imagine myself, but I already hear people like high school teachers using new AI models to enhance their teaching, or to teach history better to high school students, or to teach literature and so forth. And I think all kinds of things are possible. One thing I'm pretty sure is that the new AI models will be very common very fast. They already are on the way to being that way. Now, could they, for example, take the place of psychotherapists? Would most people prefer to pay a subscription fee to, one of these AI models rather than paying money to a psychotherapist that they go see once a week? I'm sure some will. And I think the new AI models will be a money-generating source in this way. And I suspect that that's why companies like Microsoft and Google are making big investments and spending a lot of money on research on these systems. However, that may have more to do with our own inclinations as human beings in accepting things said by, whomever says it as authority, as if they are a subject saying something that they have come upon after a chain of reasoning, which doesn't quite seem to be the case. I think that's the most important lesson we need to take into account. These new AI systems are shaped by us, by the texts that we have produced already. And without those texts, they wouldn't be able to do anything. They're not, rule-based systems. They don't try to reason. They just look at a huge amount of texts and try to derive relations among words and sentences. Again, this is not an easy thing to do. And what they're doing is, I think, very, very impressive. But for my own money, I wouldn't want to go talk to an AI system if I needed psychotherapy, or I wouldn't necessarily want to take the advice of an AI system if I was trying to decide whether to undergo a surgery of a certain kind or not. I would rather talk to a human being. But maybe that's because I'm getting older and therefore more conservative than I think. I am somebody who has argued for years for the in principle possibility of artificial intelligence. I still do, but artificial intelligence doesn't necessarily mean just the AI systems that are being developed now and are, so much in demand. So we are in a, I think, momentous but interesting turning point in history, in the history of humankind, as well as in the history of AI. At the same time, we are being faced with systems that can do things that we couldn't imagine they could be doing in a very impressive way, but also doing it in a way that we didn't quite imagine they would be doing it. It's a very different system, and these systems make mistakes, and they're unable to say why they are saying what they are saying. So there is, it's a very odd situation. That's what I want to say. Okay, sorry for the long answer.
Oh, thank you. I'm really, grateful for the long answer because while you were speaking, I was actually taking notes out of your set and putting them into the ChatGPT and generating questions out of what you said. And I made ChatGPT ask you some questions, and it came up with some questions. So I will be asking those questions to you. For that, I would add something about AI therapy systems because recently I've been working on the AI therapy systems as a therapist and developing the AI tool just as a tool, not the therapist. You actually make them use ChatGPT as a tool to just support them if they feel very triggered in some moments. AI therapy is not the best idea. I would love to say that, as a side note, because human beings might tend to overuse it actually. Like when we are in the therapy, we get together with our therapists, read the basis. Depends on the schedule with your therapist. But if we use AI therapy in our pocket, in our cell phone, like constantly, it will be actually very triggering at some points because it is like a rabbit hole. We are there and we are analyzing, we are trying to ask all the questions in our minds. If we are super anxious, super stressed out in some certain situations, it could actually trigger our past traumas and we might not actually able to come out of it without the help of our original human therapist. So it's actually dangerous. For the use of Eliza, 3 years ago, when I was trying to ask the questions to Eliza, it was giving me like weird answers. So, for example, the question is like, "Oh, hey, Eliza, I broke up with my boyfriend, and give me something." And Eliza is like, "Oh, how do you feel about that? Are you enjoying it?" I'm like, "What the? What are you saying, dude?" I know. So Eliza, like, assuming that we would be enjoying our human interactions. But, it can't actually identify the grief in a breakup, the joy of something else. So the main limitation, I would say, the sensory perception. When you were talking, I was asked, what are your limitations? What could be? And it was saying me that sensory perception could be that because no tactile information, no ears, no eyes. So in that sense, how could a machine with text, language, rule-based systems can provide me solutions? What would you say about that? Without sensory perception, how could be AI useful for our daily basis problem?
Yeah, AI can be useful as a tool, and this is something you said in the beginning, and I want to come back to it for a second. But I think for an AI system to really understand what's going on in human life and be able to say something that's meaningful, it needs a human-like embodiment. And without embodiment, you can't have sensory perception. Without eyes or ears, you cannot be aware of the world in the way that we're aware of the world. That's not maybe the most efficient way we're aware of the world, and it's certainly not the only way, but it certainly shapes our human mind or mental outset. Now, I want to go back to this AI as a tool idea for a second. So maybe the first time that AI was brought into public view was in the Turing paper, 1950 paper, as I said. And then in the United States in 1956, there was a summer workshop organized by a Stanford professor, a mathematics professor, actually, John McCarthy. And it was a small grant he got, and he, got together a bunch of people, maybe less than 24 people, I think, who have been trying to get machines to do things that only humans were thought to be able to do. And I think the term artificial intelligence also originated there. It was an invention by John McCarthy. Now, at the time in original AI, so these are the people who are the true pioneers of artificial intelligence. The goal was different. The goal was not to have a tool that would help humans in various tasks like psychotherapy or other things, but rather to create autonomous intelligent systems. So you would have an autonomous, I don't know, healthcare system, an artificial doctor, for example, who, without the help of a human, could listen to you, understand and diagnose what your problems are and propose a treatment and so forth. Or you can have a artificial judge who can listen to you and give you the most unbiased sentence as a result and so forth. Now, that turned out to be not possible. The United States Defense Force was very interested in artificial soldiers, so they could send these soldiers, in overseas to fight wars in other lands, and there would be, in the end, no human lives lost in terms of the as far as the army is concerned. That didn't happen either, and when the promises of AI were not delivered in the way that AI people said they would be able to deliver things, the funding got cut off. And there's been a period called the winter of artificial intelligence, where there were really very, very little funds and not many people were doing AI research. Not many people were able to do AI research. That turned out to be around the time that, I went to do a PhD in artificial intelligence. And however, something unexpected emerged out of that unfortunate period, which is this. So the people who were trying to build autonomous artificial intelligence systems, they didn't have the funds to continue their research, so they had to find other ways to make a living and make themselves useful. And I think they helped a great deal to turn computer science into a new field, artificial intelligence into a new field of human-computer interaction or computer-human interaction, HCI or CHI, because if it's very difficult for us to create autonomous artificial intelligence systems, maybe we can have smart assistants who would help a human being do a difficult task. Well, what a lawyer does is a difficult task because they have to go through all the case studies, and it's entirely possible that we might miss an important detail just because we didn't look at it or remember it, or, the night before, if you're a surgeon, you had a tough night and the next morning you don't quite see the tumor in the way that you're supposed to see. But, an AI system would not miss these details and would tell you. In fact, that's how AI progressed and evolved. So, like right now, if you take a flight anywhere, the airplane is being landed, of course, by the pilot, but with the help of a lot of AI systems. Now, I would much rather have the AI systems help the pilot in this way because, the pilot might make a mistake and the AI system would be a good warning system. So AI is a tool I think is very, very useful and it's already being used. But, and I would much rather have, a surgeon trying to convince me to have surgery or something like that to be aided by an AI system. But I'm not sure if I would like to have that AI system as an autonomous being to tell me what to do. Not because it cannot in principle. I think in principle, yes, AI systems could be like humans, as good as humans and so forth, but they need a human-like form, embodiment, I think, and we're not there. The new AI systems work based, they work on the basis of only texts, and language is a very specific human activity, and even though it can do a whole lot of things and very impressive things. It's not the beginning and end of everything about human life. And therefore, I'm suspicious of the new AI systems as a result of this. Not AI as a tool, but AI as an autonomous entity.
Great.
Yeah.
So
I'll add one more thing, if you don't mind. So,
to be continued in the next episode.